Welcome to the JAMODI podcast. We are all surrounded by amazing coaches and leaders. So let's get an inside look at not just what they do, but how they do what they do. After all, becoming the best versions of ourselves is JAMODI, just a matter of doing it. Coaches, the JAMODI podcast is powered by Shoot 360. The future of basketball has arrived in Dallas-Fort Worth. Shoot 360 combines the latest sports technology with the fundamentals of basketball skill development. The result is a one-of-a-kind video game-like basketball program designed to improve your shooting, dribbling, and passing. Visit shoot360dfw.com to learn more and register for your free 1-hour workout evaluation. Shoot 360, the future of basketball is here. I'd love to know what's one of the best things that you've borrowed lately, especially since I learned you have a 45-minute commute there and back. So you got an hour and a half in the car every day. I'm pretty sure you're listening and learning something cool. So what's one of the best things you borrowed?
Well, I think more so than my commute that has helped me just, think about things, listen to things, and learn from people. But I think also, sorry, someone's calling into
You're good.
But I think also the thing that's helped me is, I travel the world a lot, and I'm fortunate to be able to do that. I'm not bragging. I just, my speaking ministry takes me places. And I had a friend who passed away 2 years ago from COVID. And he used to tell me, he said, Chris, when you go to these other countries, you should really try to connect with coaches. And then when he passed away, I never really thought much about it. And then Matt, he passed away, and it really rocked my world about 2 years ago. And it's taken me a long time to get past it. But one of the things that came back to me after he passed away, because we were like best friends, we talked like 6 times a day on the phone, was He said, you should try to connect with some of these coaches when you travel. And so, I was traveling to Asia, and I was traveling to Germany. I was going to some different places, and I got on Twitter one day, and I sent some messages. I was going to the Philippines to do some mission work, to do some speaking, and I sent some messages, to 3 of the most successful coaches in the Philippines. They have a huge professional league there in the Philippines. They have their national team as well that competes worldwide, just like every other country does. And I reached out to them, and 2 of them hit me back. Chat Riaz, who was the national team coach for the Filipino national team this year, and Yang Yuicho is the head of the federation in the Philippines. Okay. And so they both hit me back. And on my next trip to the Philippines, I got to sit and have lunch with them and start building a relationship with these coaches who had won like 9 professional championships, and they had been 9-time coach of the years. These guys, they know their stuff, right? And then they started inviting me to come back, and hey, would you come hang out at a practice and just be there? I was like, well, I would love that the next time I'm here. And then it turned in on my next trip to sitting in with the national team and being there as they prepared for the FIBAs. And then it turned into me going back for the FIBAs here just 2 weeks ago and sitting there, and literally for 2 weeks, Matt, I sat courtside. And the international game is fascinating to me because the kids play super hard. They're super skilled, not always the most talented or the best players in the world, but man, they run good stuff, man. And they play their butts off. And man, I sat there courtside this last 2 years of my life and just building these relationships with these coaches, getting a front row seat to the international game. And man, I have taken so much stuff from them, just from drills that they do in practice, that I went, man, I never thought about that. Yeah. I'm going to do that, this next year. I have a list to offensive schemes that I'll put in this year that I learned. There's a lot of centered up ball screen action. We play through our bigs here. We do a lot of dribble drive action, and the Filipino teams are typically really small with one big. So they run a lot of dribble drive, and the variations that they run out of the dribble drive that I picked up from them, we're going to implement this year, but also a lot of centered up ball screen action that Germany ran, and that Latvia ran, who was one of the surprise teams in the FIBAs, but a lot of dribble handoff into a centered ball screen, into a roll and replace, into a cleanup screen. And just some really great actions that, I had seen before, but I never thought using, but I watched it over and over again. I went, man, I'm going to take some of this stuff and do it. And so I think the lesson for me and all of that, to answer that question, is I think you can learn from anyone.
Yeah.
And every experience we have, right? We're only as good as the people we meet and the places we go and the books we read. We've all heard that before, right? I know that's a motto at Faith, and because I've been there before. But all that being said, man, that's really been true in my life the last 2 years. The places I've gone and the coaches I've connected with and the doors that it has opened up for me to be able to experience in the last 2 years of my life has grown me immensely as a coach for ETBU and what we're trying to do here.
I think one of the best or the most important characteristics that great coaches have is curiosity. And it seems like you've been able to keep that. And my question is, I fell into that trap probably year 4 or 5 here as in my mid 30s of thinking, I've got this thing figured out. Like I got 5 tabs. Like I know what we're doing. And in that mindset, you almost start to shut down and close yourself off from continuing to look and see where the game is headed and what changes are being made. And you maybe lose some of that curiosity, over your career and all the success you've had. How do you keep that same level that it seems like you have?
Well, we've got to continue to grow with the game. I think you said that just a second ago because the game is evolving, and I think the game's going to take another turn. We're really in the era of positionless basketball right now, right? Where everyone spaces and shoots and everyone does those things. But I really believe if you watch what's happening around the world with basketball and just even professionally, the game becomes even more fundamental the higher levels you go up, right? But all that being said, I really believe it's taken a turn to where the old school post player is coming back now.
Yeah.
At the higher levels. And so we really play through our bigs, but I think it's starting to circle back around if you just watch it. And I think for me, it's trying to be ahead of the curve, and you got to be creative because just like you think, okay, I know what I'm going up against every night in our league now, right? You've been there 4 or 5 years. You know what other coaches do. You know what they're doing. Well, the hardest coaches to coach against aren't the guys that continue to do the same thing over and over again and just do it with great excellence. At least you know what's coming, right?
Yeah.
The really tough coaches to go against are the guys that put in wrinkles every year. They're the guys that evolve and continue to become creative within their base structure. And that's what we've tried to do here. I said, okay, what are 10 things we can add this year and be more creative with our offense? And what's another way I can get the ball to the big? What's another way I can create, an opportunity for my point guard or whatever it is throughout your base system that's going to make it harder for teams to guard you year in and year out. And we even went to a deal in the last 3 years of my coaching. Really, I started this in JUCO, but man, we talk about the game evolving, but I've even evolved to the point in my recruiting to where my 6'9" guys, and we have 5 guys on our roster this year that are 6'9" or better. And so we believe in length and athleticism here. But even my big guys, if they can't switch and guard 1 through 5, I don't recruit them. And we really have gone from switching 1 through 5. If you watch the NBA and how people are playing really around the world right now, that's a big deal. And if you can recruit to that kind of system, then it's really tough to break you down, and then we front the post a lot. Fronting post has really gone away, but we've started fronting the post. It's really hard to throw over us with backside help and make a play without hitting the goal.
Especially with good ball pressure too. Yeah, that's tough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so we just tried to evolve every year and just add, things to, to what we're doing to make us a little bit tougher for guys to scout us and a little bit tougher to guard year in and year out. It's like, oh, they used to do that. And then as soon as they start figuring that out, we may go back to some stuff. We may, continue to evolve. But I think that's the key, is just continuing to become creative. Even though you're still teaching your base system, we're probably never going to go away from our dribble drive action, our modified ball screen actions that we run on all offense. But we're going to continue to become creative in how we do those. And I think that's the key, as we continue to go and grow as coaches.
Yeah, I think you're right on the money. And I love the way that you said that is you don't have to necessarily just blow up everything that you're doing every year, because there is an idea that like you talked about, it's nice when players have the same coach for a few years. It's also nice when they get to play in the same system and concepts for a few years, because they're able to feel that comfort, that ability to know where they're supposed to be. And because not every player can just pick up something new instantly and be great at it. I'd imagine that very few can. But maybe the art of coaching a little bit is those wrinkles that you're talking about, and where we take what we already do well, and this is a nice little change that will allow this player to maximize his abilities. And I love that your idea of your conference opponents, for them to look at you a little bit differently. I don't want my district opponents to think, oh, well, they're just going to do the same old stuff that they've always done. And if that's happening, then at some point, yeah, we're not very special anymore. And to your other point of the game changing, I completely agree. I think the post is going to come back, and people are going to start to because I've been talking to a few people about race and space and things like that. And, we started that at McKinney with Wes Watson doing that. And there weren't a lot of teams. This was the mid 2000s. There weren't a lot of teams that were maximizing the 3-point line, playing smaller, really pressing, running and gunning. So we felt a little bit special. And then you get to the point where Coach Arsenault at Grinnell, I asked him why, the Grinnell system was changing for him. He wasn't having the same success. He's like, and other guys are doing it. It's just not that unique anymore. So when everybody starts to do what is popular, then the new outliers come around. And what's the opposite of race and space and playing positionless? Stick that big dude back down there again, and right. Not necessarily just walk it up and run sets, but man, if we're going to be 5 guards or 5 smaller players and you have one big guy and you're actually running through it, that poses a problem for us.
Yeah, exactly. And I think, and I just been watching it. And for us, we run a lot of dribble drive, and we try to recruit a roster that allows us to play different ways. So if we want to go small with one big, we can. If we want to go a little bit bigger in our modified ball screen actions and go 2 bigs with 3 guards around and run into a lot of our DHOs and run into a lot of our centered up ball screen actions or side ball screens or whatever we do. And we try to adjust in game. We try to have both systems in place, right? So that whatever the other team has trouble guarding, then that probably dictates what you're going to run.
Man, that's good.
On that night the most. Yeah.
See, I'm too stubborn, and I'm more of a Jason Garrett. We have this is our way, and process. We're going to stick with it, and I would say one of the areas of growth for me is those in-game adjustments or having more than one thing to go to, and but it's over the years I have been we're going to play fast, we're going to shoot it, and the nights where it doesn't go in, we tip our hat and we keep going. There's something to that. But then what if we have something else we can go to? And Coach, I haven't figured that out yet.
Well, you will. I mean, I don't have it figured out either. I just think for me, and instead of teaching one system, we've taught 2. Mm-hmm. And we run them. There are primaries, and everything comes out of our 2 primaries. But they're very different what our primaries are. And so it allows us to figure out what our opponents are going to struggle guarding the most. And we mix it up through the course of the game as well. Throw a little dribble dive at them, then we'll get into some ball screen stuff and just see what they're struggling with on that night. Some teams are going to be really big and they're going to struggle to stay in front of us if we go small. And some teams are going to be really small. And if we go big, they're going to really struggle to rebound and guard us and keep us from scoring. And so that's where I think, in coaching, it's just, at this level, it then becomes about the mismatches and the most problems you can create for the other team.
Thank you for checking out today's episode. Please take a moment to subscribe to this podcast, share it with your fellow coaches, and find us on social media for what's coming up next on the JAMODI podcast. It's just a matter of doing it.